Hello, everybody. It's Ben Calder here for the BTPA, the Bowen Therapy Professional Association, and I'm really excited today to be joined by Ross Emmett, founder of the Emmett Technique. He's Australian born from 1945 and lives up on the northeast coast in Townsville, been in clinical practice since 1981, traveling throughout the world now, holding lectures and seminars into his unique insights into bodywork. And he was qualified as a therapeutic massage practitioner in 83. He was teaching Bowen from 88, and he also uses NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and is a qualified hypnotherapist as he uses these skills to help gain the best possible outcomes for his clients. And Ross started to develop the concepts of Emmett Technique, which he talks about being a chameleon approach to bodywork, before he had any formal bodywork training. He was highly intuitive with observational skills, and combining that with his dyslexic tendencies, he then started to have insights that contributed to what we see as the Emmett Technique now. Now, this has been taught in over 40 countries around the world and has been in the UK since 2007. And Ross runs seminars all over the world looking at a number of different things. Emmett can also be used with animals, which is part of why he principally developed it. And I'm really looking forward to having some conversations with him today about his technique. So I hope that you're going to enjoy this, listen along, and I look forward to hearing your feedback on our interview later. Ross, thank you so much for joining me. It's a real pleasure that you're going to give your time today to have a conversation with us.
Thanks very much. It's something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, good. And I really love that you've been open to coming and having a discussion with us. As you know, I'm here with the BTPA, so we're predominantly Bowen-based, but we've got so many practitioners here in the UK who've trained in Emmett and work with Emmett alongside that Bowen technique and interchange the two techniques. I thought it'd be really nice just to have a little discussion about what's happening within the two techniques and what those variances are and why they work so nicely together as well. But before we get too deep into that, could you just, for people maybe who've not come across your work or don't know you so well, or have never had an opportunity to listen to you personally, tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today. How did it all begin? What got you into bodywork, physical therapy, and where are we now?
The actual part that got me into it was through an injury that I sustained while water skiing in the, I must have been in my late 20s, early 30s, and I had an injury to a shoulder. I went on the normal run of things, went to the doctor, went to chiropractics and different people to try and ease the issue that I developed, which was, as I say, through water skiing. And the injury wasn't subsiding. So I was getting a bit frustrated. And I went back to one of the people that I had seen previously, was an acupuncturist. And I said to this acupuncturist, I hope you don't mind, but can I just ask you to do something for me? And she said, yeah, I'm willing to do that. And I said, well, I need you to hold two places, here and here. And she said, well, where's here and here? Well, it was there and there. And while she watched, the whole of my side was all in a swollen, traumatized state, as she held it. And I said, just hold it there for me. I'll tell you when to let go. And as she did, she could feel the muscle give way underneath the finger or under her fingers. And then I said, would you let it go now? And she could actually observe this dropping away. And so she watched the result and she said she couldn't have done that because she'd already tried. So she asked me a little bit more of, would I like to have a look at a couple of people she knew? I had no qualifications at that time. So then I did a few people, and then the numbers got greater. She said, look, you need to get some sort of training here to say what you actually do. So in this case, I went off and I was working in the mining industry at the time. I went off and I got myself a massage qualification in 1979.
Good.
And this was so that I could go and use some of these methods that I had under umbrella of Massa. So that's how I got started. From there, things progressed. I got to do, as after doing massage, I got to do quite a few different modalities, looking at what was helpful, what wasn't, shuffling through the pages and picking which was relevant for me and my beliefs. And I come across Bowen there as one of those modalities.
Okay. So then you spent, if I'm right, you spent a number of years teaching Bowen as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I started Bowen in 1988. I was in practice nearly 10 years as a private practice, and I had massive amount of numbers. I had a very large turnover. I was a result-based, and I had a different mentality because I lived in a mining area.
Mm-hmm.
People wanted the results and needed results quickly. And if they didn't get those results, quite often they could lose the contract which they were working for because of medical reasons. So my job, repetitive strain, was a major thing through different areas, and I worked through that. So when the association I belonged to at the time was Queensland Association of Massage Therapists, we used to invite in different new modalities to keep our CEU points going. And Bowen was one of those courses that were brought in. It was advertised in our Massage Association magazine as an adjunct to all other therapies. So therefore, it was complementary. And so I thought, well, this could be a good way for me to go. And I was doing a very large number, up around 100 people a week, which was starting to tax my hands, and I was starting to feel the effort coming into carpal tunnel was developing through this continuous work I was doing. And so I was looking for that relief.
Wow, okay. And did you find then that moving into the Bowen technique at that time for you made it a lot easier on the physical body? And were you then, because again, hardworking guys, tough bodies, were you still getting the results then that you needed to be able to retain that popularity?
Well, there's a couple of things that I got out of when I learned the Bowen. Bowen was a 4-day course. It was that was about the limit, and it had a different principle behind it to what I was working. I was a quick fix man. I come from a boxer's background, so as a child, I'd learned boxing, and I'd known that in the fight of 3-minute rounds, we'd have a 1-minute break, and in that 1-minute break, the person who was the trainer or that would assist with any injuries you sustained through the previous bout. Mm-hmm. And it was marvelous how quick they could get a result from me. So you pull a shoulder or you do a thumb or you do something. It was quickly snap back into position, and we got on with the fight. There was no time out, and there was no coming back for a second go. You either succeeded or you didn't. What happened was that Bowen, when working with people through the massage, I felt I needed a break because I had a similar principle of working as what Bowen did. I needed that break within between the moves that I was putting in to give it time to recalibrate and make a muscular change or a physical change. So that's where Bowen helped me. I'd found a method of coming in, relaxing someone, and then possibly engaging my own technique in getting the muscle and the trauma to release, and then we'll work from there. So Bowen gave me that opportunity to have a good break in between. That was the hardest concept to find in Bowen, was accepting that, because I had been a person who worked through, but I also knew the value of the time out for your brain to recalibrate before you hit it with another set of punches.
Yeah, beautiful. And I mean, there's something quite miraculous as well. I mean, it's interesting. I was reflecting when you were talking about that original 4-day course as well. Over August, I got to work with Graham Pennington, and he still got his original manual from the 4-day course with the coloured pages in it. And,
yes, I have 5 manuals, 2 different ones of the coloured pages. and then another 3 different ones over time. So the first one that I had was 1987. There was stick drawings and coloured pages, and then they upgraded it to outlines, some sketchings, as well as colour pages. Then it started to integrate into a more formable manual.
Yeah, it's incredible as well how things evolved, and certainly when I see the material that the schools are putting out now, it's very different compared to those early sequences that were being taught back in those days. But I'm kind of curious as well, because your kind of first comments back about seeing the acupuncturist with your own shoulder, you knew those 2 places that needed holding on yourself. Was that just purely intuition for you, or had there been anything else that had informed that for you?
I started as a kid, and I had this uncanny way about me that would do certain things to. I've been an animal man all my life. I grew up with animals and dogs and that. So if my dogs would get hurt, I'd do little bits and pieces to them. And one of the things that I did find was that if I held a certain point in the dog and I twisted a little bit, it started to scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And it would scratch uncontrollably. And of course, as a young boy, I used to enjoy myself by getting this dog into that state of aggravation. It was until I was sitting there one day and the dog started to I noticed it gave a little quiver in the back hind quarter as I was before it started to scratch. So what I did was very quickly plonk my other finger, the one that was doing the irritating, and plonk the other finger on the one that was doing the quivering, and he instantly stopped scratching, even though I was still in contact. So I was curious. I tantalized that dog for quite some time by putting one finger on and off, and watching what happened. So my background comes from, I worked with animals. I got my first job at 16. I worked at an animal research institute where my job was looking after the animals while we did some experimental work on them. My job was to sit back and observe what the animal did if given a certain disease or a poisonous plant. And I was to give the observations to the trainee vets. So I started to observe different parts in the animals. I was an animal person, so I didn't want to see the animal in distress, but I didn't want to interfere with the experiment. So I used the comfort, or I would use those holding points to certain points or switches to create big changes or comfortable changes. One change that sticks in my mind was I used to have to bleed animals, bullocks and horses from the neck, and we used to have what we called a bleeding strap, a tourniquet that we pull tight to get the jugular to stand up, and then we draw the blood off for experimental reasons. And sometimes these animals, from being done so, get all a massive scar tissue, and you couldn't get the vein to stand up. So I got with it, and I did the attachments to the base of the shoulder with the neck moves, and I noticed that would relax the tissue, and then I could pull the bleeder strap easier, bleed the animal more comfortable. What I also found is when I took the animal out of its control, out of the race, out of the area we gathered in, it would turn easier and it had a lot more flexible neck and turn. So that's a way of this I took on to people later on in my life. But it all comes from most of it from animal.
Wow. So literally just being present with animals, noticing things, experimenting, and that's what started to develop that range of possibilities for you.
I had over 5 years there, and the vets were very good. They'd encourage me, and I become highly observant. I already, from my boxing training, and I boxed for a long time, I learned body language and how to read different weaknesses and flaws, so that I could, say, pepper that point. With the animals, I used to observe them and give this information on onto the vet and say, well, you've given the animal a bracken burn, and I've noticed since then there's a swelling in the eyes and there's a swelling in the tongue, and the animal has a tendency to move disjointedly. So I was observing as well as finding, and then I had a captive audience, so to speak.
It's incredible. And again, I've been trying to feel into this a little bit for myself, kind of reading a little bit about your early life history. I know it wasn't the easiest of lives to begin with. And you've got this ability for noticing, and, kind of it talks in your bio about you being able to see things that typically don't get noticed. And I'm wondering whether or not, in your kind of opinion, my thoughts around that are that when we've had difficult, kind of adverse childhood experiences where life's not always been the easiest, it makes that nervous system that much more hypervigilant. And so we're observing for little details that may or may not have a difference as to whether or not it's safe or threatening within any particular environment, particularly around people or animals, as those kind of in nature are the two things that are probably the most dangerous for us. And I'm wondering whether or not, in your opinion, do you feel that some of that ability for you to develop that sensitivity comes from a hypervigilance from those early childhood experiences?
Oh, definitely. Well, I had a couple of a short period in an orphanage where the oldest of three, I was put in there with two younger brothers, and I was only at a younger age. The oldest boys in there were around 12. I was around 8. I turned to read the signs, and the self-preservation, I had to learn to read the signs. The words would pre-warn you that something was going to happen, and you're trying to protect your brothers and keep them out of harm's way. So, and then the same in the boxing field, you're not out there to get hurt. No, at no time am I there to get hurt. I'm out there to avoid punishment. So I'm looking at any sign that would give me pre-warning that the person was going to attack or hit this area. And so I think I used to pride myself on my hair of always being in the right place. So I'd always look to make sure that I didn't get my hair mucked up. So it's just the way I think. I think that's mostly it is self-preservation.
Yeah, and I think that's a really useful thing, because I've often wondered for myself, what was it that made me interested in doing this. So, I've been 21 years now as a kinesiologist, working with Bowen and a number of other modalities, and I always wondered what really tuned me in to be able to see that. And I know as a kid I was able to watch people and notice stuff about them, and these days I look back on that as having been a hypervigilance that was there as a self-preservation activity. But it's something that now I can use in a positive way to be able to observe and work with people and spot for patterns that are going on there. So it was really interesting to kind of note that in your bio and wonder about that link in there. So really thank you for sharing that with us as well.
Well, I can say that I am dyslexic, and if I'm shown something highly visual, once you show it to me, I've got to mimic it or perform it, or otherwise I get frustrated and angry trying to wait for everyone else to catch up. So it's a monkey see, monkey do. I've got to do it.
Yeah.
That frustration gets to me because the moment you point out to me the scratch on the new car, I can't miss that scratch. Whereas everyone else is still looking at the new car, I'm looking at the scratch.
Yeah.
So I think that's had a lot to do with me. I'm pleased that I'm dyslexic. I really mean that. I've never I've thought of it as not as a weakness, but as a strength. And it's allowed me to make an opinion. If I could say, I was once in the presence of a very strong man, and I was working with him, and he said something about that the technique is the technique I do is of people. And he mentioned that I was the master of this thing. And I said, I got upset. And he said, you don't understand. In my country, which is Asia, we have many masters who use incantations, masters use pendulums and crystals. how did you know this woman had the problem? I said, I just knew. And he said, well, that's what I mean. You're the master. I said, I don't believe that. And he said, no, you're the master of your own thoughts. You have belief without confirmation. Other people need confirmation to what they think. And I think that sticks with me, and I believe that you may come from the same background. You have an opinion, you like to put that to the test before you start taking everyone else's opinion. Will I be true?
Yeah, sure. And of course, like you, I can't ignore the scratches. So when you have somebody in front of you, again, I'm very much aware of the fact that we often create persona. We're often creating this idealized form of how we want to be. But for somebody like you, I'm guessing, and for me to a degree, that we can't ignore the stuff that's then out of place within that, the lack of congruence within some of that model that they're trying to present to us. And it's that which draws our attention, and it's that which makes me curious.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, brilliant. So out of interest then, I know that on your website it states that the Emmett points, they're not trigger points and they're not acupoints. So how do you, from a kind of an anatomical level, do you have any way that you kind of frame what those points are? And how do you kind of just, other than being Emmett points, what's informed what those points are apart from your own awareness?
I think there are different points for different reasons. One is a storage of memory. If I went past someone and I kept getting a clip in the ear every time I went past, in the end I'd start to duck and weave before they even made the hit. But the muscles within my shoulders would also start to contract and prepare me to ride out the issue. So then it stays there in storage. I think there's a lot of that in what I do. I look for keys. It's a key that where it's been very difficult for me to explain that, because to each person I explain it to, I'm different about it. If you're an electrician, I said it'll be bridges and arcs across between two electrical points. Positive and negative can go be. It's an easy way to explain. But is it the truth?
Yeah.
That's the hardest part to say. Is it truly what this is? Because every time I put it out there, my explanation, someone will challenge it from their belief.
Yeah.
So it's a collection of points that look within the framework of the muscles. I always say to people, I'm like a body electrician, but the switch is on the wall, not on the light. So quite often in our non-anatomical training, we get bogged down when trying to put the switch on the light, on the muscle, put the receptor on the muscle, rather than have the influence of the receptor go out to that muscle. And so I've explained it sitting here, unless I was in the framework of teaching, where
Sure.
it's already in me to do it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, sure. And to me, that sounds in a way like we're connecting into junctions within the nervous system. And within those junctions, there's then a feedback taking place through to the tissues, which could be away from the point that you're actually activating. As you say, it's the light switch on the wall, not on the light. So you're able to alter the signals moving through to different parts of tissue, and then that in itself is able to create change.
Yes, the power of what each point is, even in the connection. You want to get the most direct power source to create change and to activate memory. The great thing about the brain is the key. The body of the view is the key, and basically the hard drive is the head. So I'm going to go in and look for the right keys to go in and get the hard drive to recalibrate, to refunction and restabilize. If I go and hold it too long, like on the keyboard or on the iPhone, if I hold it too long, it goes into an irritation. So I need to come up while it's getting information before it goes into that state of irritation, which is defense mode. I want it in a curiosity mode or self-help mode, not into a mode of aggression, of trying to withdrawn.
Beautiful.
Well, the difference when I was doing massage, when I was massage, I always had to do, the massage was the softening up, if you like, of tissue, but at the same time, I was sensing to find where in the muscle tissue it was housing this little point. Now, once I found it, I couldn't go in there and overstimulate it, because if I did, that's what was happened to it in the first instance, overstimulation. I could come and draw it back and then sedate it down by just calmly using 2 points to negate the tissue. But with massage, if you weren't aware, you leave it, if it's like an on and off switch, you couldn't tell whether you left it on or off. So I always did the preparation through the massage first and then bring in the point of contact.
Yeah. So that for you is actually a mindful way of palpating the tissue and just trying to understand what was being held in there. Unlike with some massages, you see where the person's doing this stuff with their hands, but they're not really present in the body.
No. And a lot of times, like I come from a boxing field, I had two types of massage when I was boxing. I had a massage that would warm me up, and that was getting the stimulus going and having the blood flow, getting the lymphatic flow, and it get me nice and warmed up. So I was right into the fight and feeling supple about the receiving and giving. After the fight, I'd have another rub down, and that was to get rid of the lactic acid and the bruises and everything else. They were two totally different massages. One was nice and getting me warmed up, so to speak. The other one was to sedate me and calm me down. But no time when I was boxing did everyone get on their elbows and knees and start crawling over my back. That was what the fella did in the ring. So beforehand, I had the light massage. In the ring, they beat me up, and he was called an opponent. Then when I come out, a friend would try and calm me down. So it was a three-part principle here. And the middle part was basically, that's what I was trying to get away from. How can I get the changes I need without putting you through the pain?
Yeah, sure. And how long did it take you to kind of formally draw together all the points that you now use within Emmett Technique? Over what period of time was that awareness building, or is it still building?
I was curious with everything and went through. And like I said, we went out and I learned Bowen. And in the Bowen learning, I found a way of getting a person, giving them time out. And that's what I had with the basic understanding of the Bowen. They were called BRM, basic relaxation moves. So that's all they weren't. They weren't correctional moves. They were basic in relaxation moves. And every now and then there was a correction put forward if you found it within that tissue. But once you'd already got and created the change, it didn't say then go on and look for more. It would go in and say, let's see how well the brain and body will deal with this over a certain period and see where we need the next correction. In other words, there was an opportunity to give the brain the opportunity to recalibrate without our influence, so to rely on self. So getting back to that Bowen start, when I first started then, there were a lot of people like me who were good in their field. We had good practice and we had lots of general knowledge, and we were willing to share that. So when you did the Bowen, someone said, hey, but look, if you do this, but if you do that. So they were making a therapy as we were going. We had, if you have seen those original notes, they were very insignificant notes. They were just mindset. They were getting us into that mindset. And then we started to share back with the individuals that were putting it forward and start to say, hey, yes, but watch this. So I was watching the therapy develop through other highly professional people like Russell Sturgis and many others were on the same course. And we would be sharing these ideas and systems. It was... as a teacher of Bowen, I was teaching Bowen, and my students would ring up and say, look, I've done the pelvic move, or I've done this move, and I'm not getting a result, and this person is in pain, and I'd say, I want you to just go and do this and this, and tell them 2 points to hold with their fingers, and then just stand back and watch what happens. Now, I did that through encouragement by a lot of people over time, and someone would ring up, oh, I've got this headache and it won't shift. Okay, what have you done? I've done all the basic Bowen that we have. I say, well, how about you do this and this? And so then they'd say, wow, that worked. Have you got another one? And it was in the early 90s that I started to share this with Aussie Wrench and other teachers of Bowen. And then the teachers got together, a group of them, and asked me if I could put together a group of them points and work them out so we could put them in a teachable format. That teachable format was the hardest thing to do, because what I did naturally. I looked at you, seen an issue, made the change. Like an artist, I just make a little bit more shadow and a little bit of a flick there and create the changes. Here I had to try and find a way of explaining to other people how to make those changes when their principles of life were different. They might not see things, they might hear things, or they might feel things, but they don't have the same sensitivity to sight. So we did that for a while, and a lot of the Bowen instructors at that time, they got a group of students together, and they got on, and Emmett was classified in the late 90s as the missing link. And they went and said, well, I would then give over these parts, and that's how it got started. And I have to say, Bowen started Emmett, but it was never ever developed on Emmett. And that met some of the men who worked with Tom Bowen, and they've done my courses, and they've come and said straight out no, and put it in print that it isn't part of Bowen, but it's two men with a similar idea putting together something that has the possibility to work.
Yeah. And that's gone on now and been developed, so it's a full formal system, and you have both equine and canine training as well, is that right?
Yeah. If you would ask me the equine and canine, I was an Australian dog judge, obedience judge, before I was a therapist.
Yeah.
So I used to work on dogs and animals, as I said. So I'd already had this. It's just strange that the formulated course for animals come out after the human side. It was on animals that I learned and made the mistakes, and they couldn't complain too much. What I was able to do was then go on to the humans who did complain too much. Yes. Where the animals, it's just a different way. I work with the large animals, and I do it so quickly. I know that the capability of an animal is around 3 parts of new information before it goes into an irritation. So you don't overload it. Treatment on a horse to me only takes minutes, or a dog's. Or as a dog judge, I'd do it while I was judging the dog. I'd go through and notice that it was gaping a little bit off and it was not on a true line. I'd do a quick correction while doing an examination as a dog judge, not as a dog.
Yeah, I mean, although animals can't complain, you also see really quickly when they do improve as well, don't you? So they don't have that placebo mindset going on.
That's the main thing. When someone said, oh, Ross Emmett gets his results for placebo, there's no placebo with the animal. And it's another good thing is the animal has the ability to pick up its owner or handler. And you've got to have characteristic changes within yourself to make sure that the animal feels that the owner is at ease before they become at ease with you. So there's a lot of mind games between you.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. So I want to ask a little bit about pressure, because this is an interesting question that goes through the Bowen world, and different teachers have different opinions on what pressure to use. So tell me a little bit about how you define the pressure that's appropriate to use with the Emmett points.
The way we have a singular digit to start with. It's got to be singular. So it's like putting information into the computer. It's got a single digit that hits a single key. If I let other digits float around, I'm liable to bring up any word on the screen. So it's a single digit point. What I'm looking for is the point of recognition. So if I go and I touch, say, a dog or a horse or a human, there's a little recognition time either through the eye or through if it's a cat, it's through the tail. There's a little flicker comes just before the recognition point, so if it springs at you or whatever. So I'm looking for that jump. So what I do is, and that jump can be resistance within tissue itself. I place my finger on a press, and as I press onto it, all of a sudden there's a point of resistance. That tells me I've got it before it's gone into the pain factor or defense factor. I'm holding it in the state of curiosity before it passes into the state of reaction. Now, out of curiosity, the brain's always looking at a way of helping itself. I know if I hold it for a certain time frame, that person will start to use that information and say, I can fix this, I can fix it, and recalibrate themselves. Then I've got to make a break and let that animal just feel and reshuffle. And you can sit back or a human and you can watch them readjust themselves. So a good Emmett therapist does not, if you get on the table, I'll never go and straighten you up or pull you around or tuck this in and that. We want to see what's the plan that you laid out for us, which way do we see it, make our adjustment, and then see if you readjust your body to suit. So pressure is basically gauged by what I call the first jump, the first point of recognition, either by resistance, flick of the eye, sigh, anything.
Yeah, so it's a whole body feedback mechanism rather than just looking at that individual point. And I mean, obviously there's the sensory data that you're receiving back through your hands, as to what the tissue's doing, but then it's watching what that overall global effect is.
I think I often relate the treatment that I do is to a game of pool, and I've got to play the shot. I cannot play the next shot until my opponent has had his shot, and what happens to the balls and how they set themselves up. The other part that's very important is the recognition that everyone is an individual, and I say God made us so by making everyone's tongue different. So therefore, we've got to be willing to cater to that difference. And with that singular point, it might be the tilt of the angle, it might be like a toggle switch in a helicopter. You slide this fraction this way and you're gone off. So it's trying to keep that into a direct pressure and watch where the ripples go.
So it really requires people using Emmett technique to be very present in the moment, very present with the touch, very present with the person or the animal that they're working with, to be able to get that real-time feedback.
Yes. Yeah. But I think we talk people out of touch from the moment your child is born. The first thing that they're taught is no, don't touch. And yet some of us are born where we have to touch. These are my best eyes. I see more with these than I do with these. And the feedback is coming back kinesthetically into my visual. And I think that's highly important. You're encouraging people to learn it. We've all got it. It's just that somebody told you not to use it. Now I'm saying to you, why don't you at least find out what you can see? And that's where it's the other thing, that a lot of people have a lot of education and they're trying to fit into that educational bucket that they have, this list of modalities and information. They get stifled by trying to flick through it. Where does it fit within the bucket? And they lose time and they lose ability to try and prepare too much rather than going in touch. Like I used to say, if someone said to me, that's wet paint, I'd go, yes, it is. And then I'd go back again and say, I think it'll dry in 2 hours. And I think it's oil based. I couldn't just leave it with one touch. I had to go in and find out as much information from that touch as I could.
Beautiful. And it's so nice as well that that's something that has been partly inherent to you because of early life, but you've had that ability to develop it. So I'm curious then as to where do you see Emmett evolving over the next decade or so? What's your vision going ahead with what's going to happen in Emmett Technique as time goes on?
I think there's three things missing today in all modalities, and one is that we're getting education to suppress natural ability. We've got to follow the rule lines, and we don't allow enough free flow and reason to find out what we're capable of. There's something that a lot of people say to me that I put forward: 40 to 60%, depending on how good you are at it, but at least 40% of your treatment has got to do with the psychological part of the treatment, on the person's memory, or on your presentation, on their likes or dislikes. I don't think there's enough bedside manner talk today. I think there's a lot of people want to sprout a lot of words and start telling people what they should experience rather than get the feedback from the individual, letting them know what changes they feel. They go in with a set plan that they've looked up in a book, and they don't give themselves the freedom to adjust to this client. He mightn't like it. Well, don't do it.
Yeah.
He doesn't like it. Don't do it. Oh, but it's part of the procedure. No. How about you go and work with him? He's paying you the money. You actually pay the other people the money. They've given you the message. He's paying the money. How about you do the same for him?
Yeah.
And I think there's got to come back where there's more of an integration with what I call the 7 A's, with making sure your atmosphere and your presentation, your attitude. There's so many things can go with this, and find out which is your best learning. I know a lot of people I like to say, when you stand to teach someone who's a mirror, make sure they stand beside you, not in front of you, because they're going to take taken twice as long, and the class gets bogged down because these people have a different way of learning. Our job is paid as teachers to teach them what they want to know. Then we have to make those adjustments, note them, and encourage the person to adjust it soon. I do believe Emmett there's more and more being found out scientifically all the time. Just last week, we've had some stuff coming on the lymphatics and that. Compared with everyone, they've done enough studies now, little bits and pieces, but it hasn't been pushed by me, because basically I'm just the developer, the person who come through and shared with you something that I found worked. Now, if you want to pull it apart and do the anatomy, physiology on it, then that's your prerogative. But you're still going to end up at the same 2 points. And I think that's encouraging that people are starting to do that. I know I'm 78 and I'm ready to step back from that physical side, but there's a nice way. I know I can talk you into a headache. So if I can talk you into one, I've got the ability to talk you out of it. I can make you feel better just by doing a nice stroke. My mother used to go and kiss it better, and it was instant, like a rush of anesthetic. Oh, the pain was gone. That ability, not describing why it is, just the enjoyment of receiving it, is what we should be enjoying, and that's where I hope we go. I'm looking forward to taking forward there. I'm already way ahead of where I ever thought this would be. I never expected to be this. I was just someone who had an experience, who shared it with someone else, and then had, when they couldn't get it, find a way to explain it so they could understand.
Yeah. As
with the Bowen, that's what I found when I first learned Bowen. Bowen was a simple format for me. I was a simple man. I understood the stick drawings. I understood the simple things. I did them when they started to bring in lots of parts and issues. I remember once someone telling me about fascia, and that the fascia is the connection, and they had a body on the table and they had the fascia all laid out. And I looked at it and all I could see was an empty balloon. And I thought, this doesn't tell me anything, this fascia, until you put air into it and emotion. I see no characteristics at all. I can't see the dimples. I can't see the mouse ears. I can't see all those out because he was just flat. But I understand how other people could read it.
Yeah.
And that's
It's fabulous. There's a teacher that we have over here in the UK, Gus Della Quera, who, when I spoke to him around Bowen Technique, he beautifully said, be loyal to the patient, not to the technique.
exactly.
And it's that listening to, and again, I think you're absolutely right, that bedside manner, that ability to be able to come into a level of flow with the person that you're working with. And even, I'm really keen on the setting of a treatment being something that feels comfortable for people. Anywhere I set up a couch or I do work with, I get on the couch and I look at the ceiling and I look through the hole in the couch because I want to know what they're going to see when they're in those positions. Because unless you go into that place, how do you know?
More people know about your feet and shoes than they do about your face.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, which is really interesting. And I think those are such key things for us to be aware of. And I do think I agree that sometimes we can get tied down into this micro focusing into the details of the body and sometimes just not looking at the bigger setting, the environment, and B, at the relationship that's taking place between us and the person that we're working with, which is why for me, I've been looking at integral theory, an American philosophical practice for, kind of 15 years now. And I find that is really useful because it explicitly states we have this body with a mind in an environment, and that's in a culture of me and whoever it is that I'm with. And all of those factors are part of what are contributing towards that process that we're engaged in. So even how I show up and how I present myself makes a change as to what happens with that individual.
Well, when I first started, that was on my first day of any course that I did was taken up with what we call a 7A's, your appearance, your attitude. Find out whether they're visual, kinesthetic, auditory, what colors do they respond to, which is the best color for us, not what you like, not what color you like, but what color is less offensive to them than, so therefore put in the least offensive color because that's the first judgment they make is what they see when you walk out of there. They're noting your dirty feet or your unpolished shoes or they are as more, and there's a respect. As a dog judge, I used to say, if you come in to show me a dog looking like you come from a barbecue, you don't respect me, my opinion, or your dog. So I will give it to someone whose dog mightn't be as perfect, but the person took more time to present the best parts of that animal, and it was man's best friend. The other one was just owning a possession, and that was critical in treatments. The treatment is basically, I've got to make what do unto others as they want done unto them, not as what's done unto you, because you may like deep tissue, and they just don't take that. I think if I can't change anything that I've done at all, because what it does, it would change all the repercussions from what had happened. I like what happened.
Yeah.
And where it goes from here, I've still got a few years to pass over some other stuff yet. And I'm at an age now where I don't have to, I don't apologize as much as I should before. And I think there's a little bit, I once asked a person, today I don't think we hear the truth as often as we should because of all the legal minefields that are there. But truth is supposed to be such a powerful thing, and yet we're stifled by using it. We've had to put a silencer on truth and put it in such a non-offensive manner.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We've got to be, we can't just say what we see anymore. It's the language has had to change.
I think one of the things that Bowen has shown me is I've noticed I've met with a lot of the people that work with Tom, and each one of them, I watched them work, or they've either attended my class or stuff like that. And I've watched them, and no two of them are the same. And each one has gone and created that character off the basics, off the same basics, off the base raw principles of unbalance, they've created a treatment that they projected themselves through. You know, be it Romney Smith, be it Keith Davis, be it Kevin Ryan, each one of them have put their characteristics in how they deliver what Tom is. And you could see there was a principle behind it, but it's only up to you which one you wanted to follow. Because that was it. There was no right or wrong, and none at all.
And 5 of you in the same room are not going to hear the same thing.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I know. I think they've done a very, very good job on Bowen. I think what's happened is a lot of things that were improved. A lot of things were brought forward and improved. But a lot of the old statements were grabbed as truthful rather than something that come in on the day. I've been on courses with the initial Bowen people, and I've seen them cater to someone who knew a lot of anatomy on the day, change the move from being here to being on the junction of this and this, when in actual fact it was the switch that actually had the action was back there, not the junction.
Yeah.
And they changed it because of the power of the other individual with their prior learning.
Yeah. And Graham spoke a bit about that, about how when Ozzy went over to America and because of the nature of litigation and how they worked, he came back and just said there's a whole bunch of stuff we can't do the way we have been because it just won't be accepted over there. And that was part of the change that took place, which was really interesting to understand.
Well, I can honestly tell you I haven't changed anything in life.
Brilliant. Well done.
No, because I have no principle. Yeah, I didn't try to go and sell it that way. I haven't gone to sell it. If someone's gone and queried it, if they've gone and queried it, then mine wasn't not to explain what it is. Mine is to deliver, get your curiosity, get the result, and then if you wish it, I'll give you some guidelines. Then however anatomically you want to go into this and all the other parts is your freedom to do that, but you've got to start. And I watched that over the years I shared it all with Ozzy in the first place. I shared a lot of what I did with him. And because that's what we do. We are from the one test that we don't have in the natural therapies is a test of caring. And it's the first issue that we should have. If they don't care, get them out of there. But the caring is your first priority. I've got to have the willingness to treat my enemy.
Yeah. And, sure. When people come to us, they're in pain and they want help, and that's the first thing to look at.
Yeah, a lady once come back to me and said, from you allowing me to do this, I end up doing such and such, and I went and I did a thing, and then I went and broke my leg. What man gave you the right to do that? And I said, the right you gave me is when you come in here and said, hell, I did the best I could. You went out enjoying it so much you overdid it. The fault doesn't lie with me. Yeah. It's also, that's the thing that we need to watch is what we restrict the result with by putting in too many cautions or by not putting in anything and being the authority on someone else's. I don't give out exercises because I believe there are good people out there who know that job very, very well. I don't go out and give dietary information. People know when they're fat. Strange thing about that, they're called scales and everyone seems to look at them regular. So they've already got the best advice. They'll go and get it for it if they want that. They won't come to me for, but they will come for me for pain and discomfort.
Yeah, fabulous. There's something else I wanted to just have a look at because it was something that I'd not come across in my exposure to Emmett Technique about this time. But when I was looking through your bio and through your work, you've done talks on how clothing and accessories can affect the body and exacerbate and affect symptoms that we have. Could you just talk a little bit about that for me as well, Ross? Because I find that really interesting.
Well, look, this is usually a presentation because I do demonstrations of what people get to call magic. It's things that I found out through boxing and different observations. But I don't go out and sell it. This is how I started off in each country. I went over and did a short course, not a course, a 2.5 hour, 1.5 hour presentation on what you're wearing you out, meaning are the clothes that you're wearing, are they the culprit to your complaint? And so I go and show how glasses, by pressure on the temporalis, can go and create SCM strain because head turn. How a watch band, a tight band around the wrist will weaken the grip of the golfer or the tennis player. So I do demonstrations of before and after on people I pick from the audience. I don't ask who's got a problem. I've already given them one. And I just call them out and share that not only can I correct it, but when a person says they don't believe me, I could turn it back to where it originally was. Now that's where someone said, I think someone from England said he mass hypnotized them. I said, well, how come they're doing the same thing to other people? Because the result was a lot of it come from boxing. And so I show how putting the wrong shoes on, the wrong shape of shoe, how it interferes with your balance, and how, riding shoes were meant for horse riding. They were to slip in the stirrup and slide out. The heel was to block so it wouldn't shoot straight through. They were then shown you when I worked at Animal Research. I wore riding shoes, I wore farmer's shoes, and then I had shoes to go home in. Today, everyone has got joggers on when they're walking around or sitting in a chair. I'm not sure why we do this. It has a lot to do with belts and bra straps and clips and pressure points. The big thing is not to just point it out, is I need to correct it in front of you people. That person has to give you, yes, it is different or it isn't. It's not wait 5 days. So the difference between Emmett and Bowen is Emmett is a result-based therapy. We look for the result now. So like the boxer in the ring, I can't wait to the end of the fight or it's over. Like the participant in the sport, I want the correction now. So I'm looking for something to do now. If Bowen was a time-based therapy, as was said by Ozzie Wrench, you do the moves and then you weren't allowed to do anything for the next X amount of days. It was locked in that you shouldn't do anything for a week. Then they cut it down a bit, but they used to say, and you weren't allowed to have hot showers, cold showers. You weren't allowed to have certain things done. Now that, I don't care. My job is to keep you in the competition. So you want to jump up and down, then that's fine. Someone says, what if they hurt himself again? Then fix them again. That's why they do the sport. They know they're going to go and get fatigued. They're going to hurt themselves at times. That's why they do the sport. So give them the enjoyment. Don't lecture them about you can't do this and you can't do that. And to stop and prevent the injury going worse, but not after it's already been. So to get back to it, Emmett is a result-based therapy, and that's what those little presentations were. Watch for the result. And if people say, well, I don't believe that, then I'd go back and switch it back the other way and say, okay, lift your arm now. And they say, I can't. And then I'd release it again. You can only do that a couple of times because the brain will only do certain things, create changes like that. So it was me being the presenter. Someone once said the snake oil salesman. But it wasn't. It was to give you confidence that you can make change.
And that's absolutely right. I mean, an aside feels now the amount of work that's being done in things like barefoot shoe technology, having the right width and the movement within shoes to allow your feet to move naturally, differences that people are noticing in certain fibers and how clothes fit. And, I think watches are a really big one as well. Watches and rings, they're only small pieces of weight, but the difference that can make left and right on a body can be quite significant. It's incredible to watch.
Exactly. And if you've got a two-handed sport like a golfer's swing, where you're putting both hands in looking for equal balance pressure, and the watch is up here, you can't retain the grip over the thumb and little finger. So therefore the grip is changed, and you start to hook the ball, and then she pulls up short on a putt. So all of this comes from just observing something. If you're going to put a watch band on, make it a band, not a heavy weight that you've got to flick around. I was over in Singapore, and I picked a man out who was a golfer at Sentosa Golf Club, and I was doing one of these presentations, and he had this big Rolex on. I called him out, and I said, I noticed your putts are pulling up short and you're hooking to the left. He said, how do you know this? I said, Phil, take the watch off, and I did the forearm fix for him, which comes from a boxing days, from the repetition of boxing. And he went back and he tried the grip again, and he went, whoa, and he got the watch and he went like this to throw it, and there's a bloke out in the thing, pick me, this gold Rolex watch. So he stuck it in his pocket. His golfing was more to him than that golf watch.
Yeah.
I thought that was beautiful. And that's what we're going to look at. They're looking for things to promote us, not to slow us down. We're not looking for fashion, we're looking for improvement. And that's what I look for.
Thank you, Ross. Ross, really, really appreciate your time today. We've been going for just over an hour now, so that's a beautiful conversation, and I really appreciate the insights and your sharing. So if people want to learn more about Emmett Technique, where's the best place to send them for you?
The best place is to look it up on the websites on there. Emmett Technique UK. Emmett Technique's taught in around 40 countries at present, which is, for a man to be living and watch this grow like that has been incredible. So someone's getting a result somewhere. And it's been a pleasure talking to you. I don't get to speak too much. I'm actually usually in a defense mode rather than in a free mode. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
No, Ross, really appreciate it. Thank you. And we'll put links into the international websites to the UK websites in the video description here as well, so people can easily find that for you.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, Ben.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ross. And thank you, everybody, as well, who's been listening into the talk today, for your time and attention. We really appreciate that as well. So this is me, Ben Calder, for the Bowen Therapy Professional Association, the BTPA, having chatted today with Ross Emmett of Emmett Technique. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.